After I opened my home and heart to my sister in her time of need, she repaid me with the ultimate betrayal. Having an affair with my husband, getting pregnant with his child, and then having the audacity to demand that I leave my own house so they could start a family together, leaving me devastated, heartbroken, and questioning how someone I love so deeply could destroy my life so completely. I'm 34. And a few months ago I let my 28-year-old sister Julie move in with me because she was drowning in financial troubles. After her firm shut down and she lost her job, she quickly fell seriously ill with West Nile virus. After discussing it with our parents, I agreed to have her stay for a few weeks so I could care for her, monitor her recovery, and help her cut down on rent expenses. She clearly wasn't in any position to work anytime soon. I stepped up to help her, especially since our parents live far away, and she didn't have many friends to lean on. I thought it was the right thing to do to support a family member in need. But how did she repay my kindness? By sleeping with my husband. On top of that, she had the nerve to tell me I should leave so the two of them could start their happy family, now that she's pregnant. A few days ago, Julie called my husband and me into a room, saying she had something important to share. I assumed she would finally announce that she was ready to move out after recovering, and even planning to go back to work. Instead, she dropped the bomb. She and my husband have been having an affair for the past few weeks, and she's now expecting his child. When I met my husband's eyes, I saw he was as shocked as I was. Julie hadn't even mentioned it to him first, which explains a lot. After confessing her pregnancy, she apologized and said the past can't be undone. Then, with unbelievable arrogance, she demanded that I leave our home because she couldn't stand being around me. I was furious, but I kept my cool. In a quiet, controlled tone, I told her that I wasn't going anywhere because the house is mine. If anyone needed to leave, it should be her. And she could take my unfaithful husband along. They could build their so-called happy life somewhere else, since I was already set on filing for divorce and cutting ties with both of them. I made it clear that I wouldn't let them see me lose control. She laughed it off as if I were joking, but then my husband stepped in and confirmed I wasn't. He admitted he owned nothing, a truth that left Julie stunned. Apparently, he had been lying about everything. For context, my husband and I have been together for 8 years and married for 5. Not long after our wedding, I took a chance and started my own business, which turned out to be a success. We agreed that he could stay at home and devote himself to writing full-time, a passion he's always had. For the past 4 years, he's been working on his novel while taking care of the house. Since we didn't have children, nearly everything belonged to me because I paid for it, and we both agreed that made sense. I'm sure he regrets his choices now. When he admitted to Julie that he didn't own anything and had lied, she completely lost it. She began railing at him, calling him a phony and a liar, insisting she'd been deceived. It was oddly satisfying to see her lose control, but I wasn't interested in their argument. I just wanted them both out of my house. I had to step in and tell them to stop yelling, demanding that they leave immediately. I didn't give them time to pack. I simply wanted them gone. To his credit, my husband knew he couldn't talk his way out of this. He understood how much I value my self-respect and that I'd never forgive infidelity, so he quietly went into our bedroom and started packing his things. Meanwhile, Julie dropped to her knees and begged me for forgiveness, promising to do anything to make up for it. She claimed she needed a place to stay and that she couldn't be evicted, especially while pregnant with my nephew. The very mention of family made my blood boil. I grabbed her arm, pulled her up, and shoved her out the door. I wasn't going to tolerate her betrayal. I was livid that she'd call us family after sleeping with my husband. Even as she wailed and begged on the porch, I closed the door firmly. Then I went into the guest room, hastily stuffed all her belongings into luggage, and tossed them outside. I warned her to leave immediately or I'd call the police. Despite her continued crying, I slammed the door and went back inside. A few minutes later, my husband emerged with his own bags, apologizing sincerely. I pretended not to hear him. Julie's desperate cries continued on the porch for nearly an hour after he left, but once I put on my headphones, I blocked it all out. Eventually, her silence confirmed that she was finally gone. I immediately called my lawyer, recounted every detail, and made it clear that I intended to file for divorce. I planned to tell my family and friends later, but my dad called the next day. They condemned my actions, accusing me of being unkind and heartless toward Julie, given everything she'd been through. I found it strange because my parents always treated us equally. It wasn't that Julie was their favorite, but as they began to defend her, something felt off. They reminded me she was pregnant and that I shouldn't have kicked her out while she was between jobs and still recovering from a serious illness. According to them, she needed time to get back on her feet, and her friends were too busy with their own problems to help her. They insisted that, as her sister, I should have been more forgiving and supportive. They even pointed out that my husband had seduced her, not the other way around, claiming he told her he was in charge of our finances and was a prominent novelist and screenwriter, though he preferred to remain low-key. Naively, Julie believed his lies and thought he was important. But then her story took an even darker turn. She claimed that she was having an affair with him, hoping they could force me out together. Unfortunately for them, their stories didn't match up. Once she admitted everything, she ruined it for both of them. I stood my ground, looked her in the eye and said, "I don't even have a sister." I made it clear that I had every right to evict her because she chose to betray both me and my husband. It didn't matter if he was involved, both of them stabbed me in the back. I couldn't allow him to stay while she remained as if nothing had happened. I had weighed her pregnancy and unemployment before letting her live with me, and now, after everything she did by sleeping with my husband in my own home, even if she were further along, I would have done the same. What she did was unforgivable. She was ready to kick me out because she believed the house belonged to my husband, and to me that was nothing short of poetic justice. Yet my parents insisted I was being too harsh. They focused on how I handled the situation rather than on her betrayal. I grew tired of hearing the same arguments and hung up on them. Since that day we haven't spoken. Do you believe I was wrong to kick my pregnant sister out of my home? Update 1. I understand some people might say evicting a pregnant woman is wrong, but keeping her under my roof after what she did would be pure insanity. Thankfully, most agree that I was right, that she should find somewhere else to stay. Yesterday, I even blocked my parents. This whole ordeal has taken a significant emotional toll on me, yet I can't afford to stop working. I'm the boss and must maintain a tough front at work. Business goes on, but when I return home, I completely break down under the weight of my pain. A few days ago, my lawyer and I officially filed for divorce. My husband will be served soon, and I doubt he'll fight it. He knows me well enough to know I won't let him off the hook. Even though I'm resolute in my decision, the ache still lingers. Divorcing him won't magically erase the hurt. I can't believe that after 8 years together, he betrayed me with my own sister. I truly believed we were in love and destined to grow old together. Now I question everything we ever had. Perhaps this isn't his first affair. Maybe he's done this before. The mere thought shatters my heart. All I can do now is accept it and try to move on. He's the only one who hasn't reached out since I kicked him out, while both my parents and Julie have tried, but only to convince me to let her stay for free again. My parents are siding with her, which I find absurd. I once believed our parents treated Julie and me equally, but now I'm not so sure. I never expected her to betray me like this. It hurts when someone you've supported for months turns around and stabs you in the back. It's even harder when the people you love choose her side instead of condemning her actions. I feel like I've lost all respect for them, and I'm not sure if it can ever be recovered. I'm emotionally drained and have thrown myself into work because my personal life has completely collapsed. I haven't even told my friends what's been happening, though I know I eventually will. My partner and I share many mutual connections, and I'd rather they learn the truth from me than from him. At this point, I'm not sure what to expect from anyone. My focus is twofold. I must ensure that my work doesn't suffer, and that the divorce proceedings go smoothly. I'm fairly certain my husband won't contest the terms. I believe they're fair, but I'm still gathering all the necessary documents in case something unexpected arises. I'm doing my best to keep my mind clear because I don't want things to spiral out of control. Opening up here has truly helped, and I'm deeply grateful for everyone who's reached out, commented, and offered support. Means more than you know. Update 2. As I anticipated, my husband didn't argue against the divorce. He texted me to confirm that the terms were acceptable. In another message, he admitted he'd been struggling to figure out how to apologize without sounding weak or insincere. Ultimately, he simply said he was sorry. He confessed that he had lied to Julie to impress her. He felt inadequate, purposeless, and burdened by the fact that he didn't own anything, was financially dependent on me, and had no children. His novel wasn't progressing, and he felt as though he'd wasted 4 years on something fruitless. That irritation turned into sadness, yet he couldn't even accept it himself, much less share it with me. Then Julie showed up, disregarding how despicable her actions were. He started fabricating stories to boost his ego, claiming he managed our finances and was successful at work. Before long, they slept together. What he thought would be a one-time mistake quickly spiraled out of control. Despite his guilt, he couldn't stop. It became his way of evading everything wrong in his life. When Julie announced her pregnancy and our argument erupted, everything fell apart. He said he deeply regretted what he had done and admitted he had ruined what we once had, insisting that it was the first and last time he'd ever cheated. He pleaded with me to trust him, hoping one day I'd find it in my heart to forgive him. I cried after reading his message, a stark reminder of all I had lost. I once believed we shared a solid connection built on love, but in one day that trust was shattered. Anyone who's experienced divorce or betrayal understands the pain. Part of me wanted to despise him completely and focus on every terrible thing he had done. Yet it still hurt. I hated myself for shedding tears over his words, but when I finished reading, I summoned the strength to block him. I chose not to respond. He didn't deserve one, especially now that everything felt so raw. Over time, I grew even more upset by his words. All he needed to do was talk to me. I never made him feel inferior for working at home on his novel. I wasn't a creative person myself, never interested in writing or anything artistic. Until now, I suppose, because I need to unburden these feelings. I admired his artistic side and saw nothing wrong with him working at home. Perhaps his fragile ego couldn't bear it, or maybe others' remarks had soured him. After 8 years together, he could have at least been honest with me about what was going on. We married because we wanted to support one another, and I would have stood by him. Maybe we could have resolved things together, but he chose not to, relying instead on Julie, and that's how we landed in this predicament. The more I reflect on it, the more tragic and senseless it all seems. He lied about so many things just to make himself appear bigger and better. It's pathetic. I loved him for who he was, but it wasn't enough for him. I can't make sense of it, though I do understand Julie's motivation on some level. She wanted my life without putting in any effort. She assumed that by becoming pregnant and moving in with my so-called successful husband, she could have it all. Now, I can simply decide to ignore her existence. In a few months, I'll be through with the divorce, and I won't have to see or worry about him ever again. Update 3. It's been a few days since my last update, and I've had some peaceful moments. However, this morning, my parents unexpectedly arrived at my home. It was unusual since they rarely visit my father's hometown, where he's been living to oversee the family business with my uncle. Usually Julie and I are the ones to go see them. The fact that they flew here signified something important, but I knew they were there to discuss Julie. As I opened the door, I told them outright, if they're here to talk about her, I'm not interested. There's only one Sunday a week, and I'm not going to waste it rehashing the same story. I made it clear that I'd already said all I needed to say, and there was nothing more to discuss. I set firm boundaries. If they wanted to come in, they had to apologize first. They had 2 options, apologize or leave. My parents insisted they came specifically to talk about Julie, arguing that the way I treated her wasn't acceptable because we were family, and families handle things differently. Once again, they brought up the family angle, and like before, I lost my patience. This isn't how families should treat one another. Not in the kind of family I want to have. I told them plainly. In this family, things are done differently. My sister slept with my husband and I kicked her out of the house. This isn't normal for most families. I laid out everything without allowing them to stutter or argue back. By the end, my mother was in tears, but I was on my own turf, free to speak as I wished, especially since they had come here to trouble me. The entire conversation should have been directed at Julie, the one who truly did wrong, not at me. After I finished my rant, my mother was sobbing so hard that my father declared he never wanted to speak with me again. He called me a terrible daughter for making the woman who gave me life cry. I don't care if they label me insane. I know I'm not. And that's enough. If anyone is crazy here, it's them or my sister or perhaps all 3 of them. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update, and I haven't contacted anyone in my family, neither Julie nor my parents. I've learned that they've been sending her money. Meanwhile, my soon-to-be ex-husband is living with his parents and plans to relocate to another state once the divorce is finalized. For those asking, I have no idea what he intends to do about his child. Most of our friends now fully understand what happened, and the majority have started cutting him out of their lives. A few remain neutral, refusing to get involved. As for me, my life is gradually getting back on track. I'm determined to do whatever it takes to preserve my inner peace. I'm not joyful yet, but I'm at least calm. A big improvement over last month. I know that little by little I'll find happiness again because bad things rarely last forever. Update 5. This update is very recent. Some new developments have occurred that you might find interesting. My sister claimed she lost the baby and blamed me for it, insisting that the stress I caused led to her miscarriage. My parents are backing her on this, though the bright side is they aren't bothering me directly. Even neutral observers, who say they're not taking sides, are accusing me of causing her loss out of pride. It's almost laughable. None of these people have ever welcomed my sister into their homes. By their logic, they're just as culpable as I am. If my sister was concerned about her pregnancy, she shouldn't have slept with someone else's husband, especially her own sister's husband, and at the very least, she should have taken precautions. Nothing about this situation is normal, but when people make such absurd accusations, it isn't worth my time or energy. Update 6. A few hours ago, my ex-husband contacted me, and you will not believe what he said. No, he didn't beg for my return. We didn't part on such sour terms. Instead, he admitted he was wrong and, to his credit, made the divorce process straightforward. I'm not holding any grudges against him. Not because he deserves forgiveness, but because I refuse to waste time being angry or thinking about him. No cheater is worth that energy. What he told me, however, was quite revealing. He confirmed that my sister was never actually pregnant. He called to inform me that, despite everything that's been said about me, he'd been pressuring her for proof of her pregnancy. He even offered to accompany her to doctor's appointments several times, but she continually avoided it. Eventually, she announced she had lost the baby when he asked for evidence, but she had none. He also spoke with my parents, who had no proof either. There is no record of her ever being pregnant or losing a baby. She simply decided one day to announce a miscarriage. As a result, all claims that I caused her loss are completely baseless. My parents have attempted to reconcile with me, and have even stopped financially supporting her now that they know they won't be grandparents. But honestly, it's too little too late. I no longer care what they do for my sister. When I was betrayed, all I needed was genuine support from my family. A moral, caring response that I never received. In conclusion, my sister lost a brother, a home, and my assistance because she chose to sleep with my husband and fake a pregnancy. My parents lost a daughter because they preferred lies over the truth. I think the three of them should take a trip to Vegas and try their luck. Maybe gambling will suit them better than family. Update 7. After the truth about my sister's fake pregnancy came to light, the fallout was swift. My parents, humiliated and furious, cut off their financial support for her. Though they reached out multiple times to mend things with me, I wasn't interested. Their sudden change of heart wasn't about realizing their mistakes. It was about their embarrassment. They had defended Julie without a second thought, demonizing me in the process, only to discover they had been manipulated. I wasn't about to let them waltz back into my life just because they finally saw the truth. Some betrayals are simply too deep to forgive. Julie, unsurprisingly, did not take the news well. She tried to pin the blame on my ex-husband, accusing him of lying, but with no proof to back her up, no one believed her anymore. Soon after, I heard she had left town. Whether she did it out of shame or to start fresh somewhere else, I didn't care. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. As for my ex-husband, he followed through on his plan to move out of state. He reached out one last time, not to ask for forgiveness but to acknowledge how badly he had handled everything. He admitted he had let his insecurities ruin our marriage, and that he had been weak. He wished me happiness and hoped that one day, I'd find someone who would truly appreciate me. I simply thanked him and left it at that. He was my past, and I had no desire to carry him into my future. Now, months later, I finally feel free. My home is truly mine again. No lingering shadows of betrayal, no unwelcome memories haunting the walls. I've focused on myself, rebuilding my life with the people who stood by me when everything fell apart. My friendships have deepened, my career is thriving, and most importantly, I've learned my worth. For a long time, I let my anger consume me. I replayed every moment, every lie, every betrayal, wondering what I could have done differently. But now I realize that none of this was my fault. I loved openly and trusted deeply. And while I was hurt in the process, I refused to let that pain define me. My story isn't one of loss, it's one of strength. I survived, I endured, and I came out the other side wiser and stronger. As for my family, I have no plans to reconcile. Some wounds don't heal with time. They simply scar over, a reminder of what once was. And that's okay. I don't need them to move forward. I have built a life full of people who respect and cherish me. And that, to me, is the best resolution of all. The end.